Hi, welcome to Myths for Content. This is an inaugural episode. I'm Lyreb, your alien VTuber who just tells me what to myths right now. Now, pretty much lost already with the whole VTuber aspect, but hear me out for a bit, just a little bit. Here I'm going to talk about myths, legends, and well, what have you as content. I'm not saying I know how. No, I'm not saying I'm an expert at any of this. I do have a slight interest in a bit of these subjects, but like I said, not an expert. Mostly for my own amusement. But let's get started with the first episode's topic. And I'm gonna butcher this. Tartaro or Tartalo. No Tartaro. Tartalo or Tartaro, depending on your translation source, is basically a basque origin, and it's pretty much their version of the Cyclops. Now, the word Tartaro may have been derived from Tartar or the Turkish-speaking peoples from Western Russia, Central Asia. That is a history for another time. We're here to discuss about myths and legends, not the history aspect of it, but another time. As for Tartaro itself, it's said to be, as said before, a giant cyclops with cannibalistic tendencies and at times below than average intellect. Once again, it depends on the myth and legend as in regards to it. It is making up for its lack of intelligence by its immense strength, is being giant and all. They have streak being, however, being outwitted by humans. They find themselves usually, dead by their own means, their accidental or by other means, maybe their own hubris. In a sense. Not to say they were always hostile. Some were actually quite helpful, once again, depending on the details and the source material what you're using. Now, the heroes in these stories tend to have the moniker of madman, fool, or idiot. Maybe because the Tartaro's eye has association with the sun, being the sun's round eye and all. Now, not literally being the sun itself, but more of a representation of it. And well, how would you normally take care of a giant target? Yeah, you'll stab some. Yeah, you're gonna stab something through it. So you're pretty much just stabbing out the sun. So for people who may live in probably more northern part of Europe, or more colder part of Europe, once again, I don't know much about Europe, but basically still seeing that, less in Mediterranean, more like, colder parts, you may not want the sun to be harmed in any way, symbolically at the very least. But yeah, I can see why they give that moniker. Now I have a few tales of the Tartaro here. Hopefully all public domain. But let's begin with the first one. It basically doesn't give me much of a way of, names of these, but let's begin. Once upon a time, there was the son of a king who, for the punishment of some fault, became a monster. He could become a man again only by marrying. One day he met a young girl who refused him because she was so frightened of him. But Tartaro wanted to give her a ring, which she would not accept. However, he sent it by a young man. As soon as the ring was upon her finger, it began to cry out, "Thou there, and I here." It usually kept crying out this, and Tartaro pursued her continually. And as the young girl had such horror of him, she cut off her finger and the ring and threw them into a large pound. And there the Tartaro drowned himself. First thing I get is that this is creepy because the whole soccer elements of it. But let's start from the top. The son of the king did something horrendous enough that his appearance now resembles what he's always been, a monster inside. And once again, I'm saying this because maybe that's the symbolic gist of it, since he did something apparently so horrid that someone turned a monster. Now, once again, this is old mythology, so it could be, anything from torturing people to something that's, oh, you just stepped on their toe or something. Yeah, people with power, like witches and stuff, yeah, they would abuse it. It's really hard to come up, but basically, in order to keep in line more of the, I'm guessing it's probably something more horrible, like I said, the torture method or disrespecting the peasantry or what have you. That's made by the beginning. But from there, after becoming this monster thing, he fixates on this young girl. I hope the prince was like around the same age, but this is medieval times, so we may have a Romeo Juliet type of situation, age gap or something here. But well, once again, he fixates on the girl. Now, he was a prince. So you think that alone would have him, since the expectation was to be married, wasn't so much as like you had to be loved or anything, but no, it was just marrying anyone. So as the prince, you think he would have an ability to do so, even if you're an ugly monster. So either he did something outside of the realm of his father's ability to undo anything, or pretty much he was just horrible to everybody. Regardless, he basically fixated on this young girl, judged by the fact that he was a monster. He was probably in the woods and running around. There's probably some or local farmer or something like that. And because he was a monster, I'm guessing the fact is, remember, tutorials are also held to be tutorials are basically said to be not the brightest people. Another thing I get this fixation, I'm also getting fixation may have been, I don't know, something about being a prince, he probably wasn't always rejected, hence regretting more spoiled nature. So we get the fact that from there, and maybe the fixation probably something more along that being refused. Either way, using his immense strength, he had to pretty much torture a young man or force a young man who basically, I'm going to be honest, the man probably had to be handsome or something because he comes along saying, "Hey, have this ring." So I'm guessing either he was a handsome man or the ring was just gold, like pure gold, backing up the whole like she was from peasantry or farmland or something like that. And she pretty much immediately puts on a ring. Now, the fact that she put on a ring means that well, since he never changed back, he was still a monster. May have not gone with marriage, so he may have wanted to consummate said engagement in order to. Oh my. This is not a good first episode start on, was it? As to the fact that he had to trick the person into it, meaning that she was probably heavily protected as well, like maybe the farmers or something like that was able to drive him off beforehand. Because otherwise, a monster of his immense strength, either he was, lack of intelligence to do so, or lacked the ability to do so. Which means once again, she was easily protected. Let's be honest, because he was a giant monster. Now, because the ring was given on to, this is pretty much the ring was doxing this poor girl. Because of that, what you get is basically a giant monster chasing after her. Because the ring was apparently magic or something. I don't know where that came from. I don't know what association with that, but it came out of nowhere. But the ring is basically now telling the location where she's always at, screaming, there art thou and thou art here. I'm guessing that would depend on what you once again your translation. She was pretty much being targeted by this stalker, by the terror stalker. In order to avoid being captured, what she did was she cut off her own finger with the ring on it, and then threw said ringer into the pond. Now that doesn't say she's not into, but because once again, Tartaros aren't the brightest of beings, and pretty sure poor eyesight, poor depth perception. He basically pretty much goes into the lake of water. That's just a small pond or something like that. But let's be honest, you drown something huge, it has to be a lake. Because he ain't the brightest, he probably just kept chasing the sound in the water, being muffled as bed, and pretty much just drowned to death. Now, normally, no, normally when you hear Cyclops, you think like you're stabbing an eye or something. You just drown the bloody thing. But yeah, that's how the first one goes. This is another story to Terrell. He was a Colossus with only one eye in the middle of his forehead. He was a shepherd and a hunter, but a hunter of men. Every day he ate a sheep. Then, after a snooze, everyone who had the misfortune to fall into his hands. One day, a powerful young man was caught in the snares of the Tartaro, carried him off to his house. This young man saw the Tartaro eat a whole sheep, and he knew he was accustomed to take a snooze. And after that, his own turn would come. In his despair, he said to himself that he must do something. Directly, the terror began to snore. He put the spit into the fire, made it red hot, and plunged it into the giant's one eye. Immediately, he leapt up and began to run after the man who had injured him. But it was impossible to find him. You shall not escape. It is all very well to hide yourself, he said. But I alone know the secret how to open the door. The Tartaro opened the door halfway and let the sheep out between his legs. The young man takes the big bell off the ram and puts it back around his neck and throws it over his body, the skin of the sheep which the giant had just eaten, and walked on all fours to the door. The Tartaro examines him by feeling him, perceives the trick, and clutches hold of the skin. But the young man slips off the skin, dives between his legs, and runs off. Immediately, the mother of the Tartaro meets him and says to him, "Oh, you lucky young fellow, you have escaped the cruel tyrant. Take this ring as remembrance of your escape." I don't know why he's accepting random, like, jewelry, like, literally, like, a few feet from the door of, like, where you escaped from, but he accepts, puts the ring on his finger, and immediately the ring begins to cry out, "Thou hast me here, thou hast me here." The Totaro pursues and is on the point of catching him when the young man, maddened with fright, not being able to pull off the ring, takes out a knife and cuts off his own finger and throws it away, thus escaping pursuit of the Totaro. Now, what immediately pops out to me is the whole Odyssey story when Ulysses, or whatever his actual name is, was captured, and his crew was captured by the Cyclops, and the whole same similar situation happened, except no one saw me, and no one that, and so on and so forth. But a similar situation. Now, I'm not saying it's copy paste. Granted, it's saying more of a probably come from a similar source, Where? Not a historian, wouldn't know. But it's too many similarities to say otherwise. Now, the second problem is this. The fact that this guy is pretty much accepting jewelry and once again, in remembrance of his escape. So now, once going back to the guy, he just escaped the giant. And now, what he's pretty much, now because the mother is like still in the backyard, pretty much in the backyard of the giant's home. She sees the dude. She immediately comes up to him. So I'm guessing it's like anywhere 10 feet or, I don't know, it's a European, like 3 meters. So he's out there patting himself on the back outside of the giant's home, accepts the ring, and just, yeah. No. Funny, I think this guy was pretty much just an idiot. There's no way. When he got caught, he's probably some type of dare, like, hey, I could take care of this guy. That's the only way that makes sense. How Bridget got caught. Clearly ain't the brightest. I'm not saying he's the idiot, complete idiot in this story. But the fact is, this guy was just way too much prideful or egotistical or who knows what, full of himself to actually just get caught. Because the way he just, regardless, the same thing happens. He puts on a ring, which I'm seeing a pattern here. He puts on a ring. Ring announces him where he's at. And once again, to be chased out of Tartaro. So what he does, he takes out a knife, cuts it off, and hopefully he remembers this for Huber's thing, and escapes. Still weird how we're still seeing rings with Tartaro, but I'm not sure that's a regular pattern, but let's see. Right? Okay, this is going to be a long one. This is going to be a long one. Hey, this one actually has the title, Ura the Madman. Once again, not sure it's original translation or what have you, but let's begin. Like many others in the world, there was a man and a woman who had a son. He was very wicked and did nothing but mischief, and was of a thoroughly depraved disposition. Degenerate. The parents decided that they must send him away, and the lad was quite willing to set off. He set out then, and goes far, far, far away. He comes to a city and asks if they want a servant. They wanted one in a certain house. He goes there. They settle their terms at so much a month, and the one who is not satisfied would strip off the skin of the other's back. Yeah, this guy's sick. This guy's sick. The master sends his servants to the forest to get the most crooked pieces of wood that he could find. Near the forest there is a vineyard. What does the servant do but cut it all up and carries it to the house? I guess he wanted a whole piece? It's wood. If you're gonna burn it, that's something that's what he wants. The master asks him where's the wood is. He shows him the vine wood cut up. The master said nothing to him, but he was not pleased. Once again, it's wood. If you're gonna burn it, I mean, it doesn't specify he's his job or anything, but whatever. Next day, the master says to him, take the cows to such a field, and don't break any hole in the fence. What does the lad do? You know, he cuts all the cows into pieces and throws them bit by bit into the fields. The master was still more angry, but he could not say anything for fear of having his skin stripped off. Seriously, who would agree to this? Why would you agree to this? Even back then, where like people were different morals and different ideas and people, all this stuff. Why? You would shoot yourself in the foot with this horrendous deal. Why? It's a stupid concept. Whatever. So what does he do? He buys a herd of pigs and sends his servant to the mountains with the herd. Yes, yes. You should have just put him on an impossible tax. Well, actually, no. Okay. 1 second. This is a waste of money. The master knew quite well that there was a Tartaro on the mountain, but he sends him there all the same. Our madman, that's what it says here. I'm not sure if I wrote that. Or that's just made that. Regardless, our madman goes walking on and on. He arrives at the little hut. Tartaro's house was quite close to his. The pigs of Tartaro and those of the madman used to go out together. But Tartaro said one day to him, Will you make a wager as to who will throw a stone farthest? He accepted the wager. That evening, our madman was very sad. Good. While he was at his prayers, an old woman appeared to him and asked him, "What is the matter with you? Why are you so sad?" Once again, I guess the whole witch situation is happening once again. I'm not sure it's an association with her. He tells her that he tells her the wager that he has made with the Tartaro. The old woman says to him, "If it is only that, this is nothing." And so she gives him a bird and says to him, "Instead of a stone, throw this bird." The madman was very glad at this. The next day, he had to take care of a bird for a whole day or something, or wrap it up or something. Like, great, this poor bird. The next day, he does as the old woman told him, and the terrible stone went enormously far. But at last it fell. The madman's bird never came down at all. The terrible was astonished that he had lost his wager, and they had made another. Which of the two would throw a bar of iron the farthest? I guess in javelin or something. The madman accepted again. He was in his little house sadly in prayer. The old woman appears again. She asks him, "What's the matter with you?" "I have made a wager again." Dude, gambling addiction. No, you gotta seek help for that. "Which of the two will throw the bar of iron the farthest? And I am very sorry. If it is only that, it is nothing. When you take hold of the bar, iron, say, rise up, bar of iron, here, and Salaman, European place." The next day, the Tartaro takes his terrible bar of iron and throws it fearfully far. The young man could hardly lift it up one end and says, "Rise up, bar of iron, here in Salamakia, Salamacia, European place." When the Tartaro heard that, cried out, "I give up the wager. You have won." He takes the bar of iron away from him. "My father and mother live at European place. Don't throw, I beg of you, I implore you. You will crush them. You will crush them." How big is this bar of iron? The Tartaro was a huge, once again, unless once again it's the whole he was transformed into a Tartaro, which means their human parent and probably would most likely get destroyed by this bar of iron. That's the only way I think of. Our madman goes away happy. The Tartaro says to him again, "I will pull up the biggest oak in the forest and pull it another." He says, "Yes." And later in a day, it grew in a, wait, and later it grew in a day. And sadder he became. He was at his prayers. The old woman came to him again and says to him, "What's the matter with you?" He tells her the wager he has made with the Tartaro, and he will, and how he will pull up an oak. The old woman gives him 3 balls of thread and tells him to begin and tie them to all the oaks in forest. The next day, the sheriff pulls up his oak, an enormous, enormously big one. And the madman begins to tie and to tie and to tie. And the sheriff asks him, "What are you doing that for?" "You pulled up one, but I all of these." The terror replies, "No, no, no. What shall I do to fatten up my pigs without any acorn? You have won. You have won the wager." But the Tarot did not know what to think about it, and saw that he had found one cleverer than himself. That's not hard because all your plans were literally strength based, wasn't it? Pull up tree, iron bar, throw far. It's all strength based. I want to call it clever, bro. And so he asks himself if he will come and spend the night at his house. The madman says yes. He goes to the bed with the Tartaro, but he knew that there was a dead man under the bed. How? When the Tartaro was asleep, what does the madman do? He places the dead man by the Tartaro's side and gets up under the bed himself. In the middle of the night, when the Tartaro In the middle of the night, the Tarot gets up and takes his terrible bar of iron and shoulder showers blows upon blows. Ping, pang, That's King Pan. King Pan here. I don't know what this onomatopoeia is happening here. As long and as hard as he could give him. Cicero gets up as usual and goes to see his pigs. So when this is the next morning, the madman also comes out from under the bed and goes to see the pigs too. But Cicero is quite astonished to see him coming and does not know what to think of it. He says to himself that he will has to do with a cleverer than he is. He says to himself that he has to do with a cleverer than he, one who's clever, more clever than he. I don't know what's this misspelling here, but he asks him if he has slept well. He answers, "Yes, very well. Only I felt a little few flea bites." Once again, this is reminding me of the whole. Didn't this happen with Thor once? Brought a hammer. He said hit a hammer, like hit the person, and giants who was yeah, it was something with giants. And basically, like same thing happened. But it was more of a trick. I'm just spacing out with the actual story of it, but still, their pigs got okay very well. I food mice. Their pigs had gotten mixed, and they were fat, and he had to separate them in order to go away from his. The, the Tartaro asked the madman what marks his pig had. The madman says to him, of mine have some of them one mark, some of them two marks." They set to work to look at them, and they all had the same marks. Our madman goes off all the hogs. As he goes walking on, and on, with all the pigs, he comes to a town where it was just market day, and sells them all except two, keeping, however, all the tails which he had put in his pockets. As you may think, he is always in fear of Tartaro. He sees him coming down from the mountainside. Um, he kills one of his hogs and puts the entrails in his own bosom, under his waistcoat. There was a group of men near the road. As he passed them, he took out his knife and stabs it to his chest, takes out the pig's bowels, and our madman begins to run very much faster than before, with his pig in front of him. When Sotero came up with these men, he asked if they have seen such a man. Yes, yes, he was running fast, and in order to go faster just here, he'd stabbed himself, threw away his bowels, and went on all the faster. Which once again reminds me of another story, but like was if defeating a giant where he eats something and he stabs himself in the stomach. Something similar happened with the story. Once again, escaping me right at this moment. Dotaro too, in order to go faster, thrust his knife into his body and fell stark dead. The madman goes to his masters. Near the house there was a marsh quite full of mud. He puts his live pig into it, and all the tails too. He enters the house and says to the master that he is there with with his pigs. The master is astounded to see him. He asks him, "Where are the pigs then?" He says to him, "They have gone into the mud, and they are so tired." Both go out and begin to get the real pig out. And between the two, they pull it out very well. They tried to do the same thing with others, but they kept pulling out but nothing but tails. The mammoth says, "You see how fat they are? That is why the tails come out alone." He sends a servant to fetch a spade and a hoe. Instead of bringing them, he begins to beat the mistress. Whack, whack, whack. He tries to the master, "One or both." The master says to him, "Both, both." What? And then he beats the servant's maid almost to pieces. He goes then to the master, taking him with the spade and hoe, and sets to beating him with the spade and hoe until he can no longer defend himself. But then he thrashes the skin off his back, takes his pig, goes off to his home with his father and mother, and as he lived well, he died well too. Hey, yo, this is messed up. Okay, so to ruminate a bit, I'm beginning to understand the whole fact that remember, these heroes supposedly were not supposed to be, they're supposed to be idiots, fools, madmen. I'm guessing they're all supposed to be jerks and stuff like that. And that's something best characters, because once again, Tartaro, son, you blonde son, but man, man, oh man, wow, this is a clever jerk. horrible stuff he did. Once again, I will admit, though, the master or something was also an idiot himself. He did a terrible, terrible plan. Literally, he shot himself with that agreement. But come on, wow. But like I said, there are similar stories, as I said before, with the whole trick into the hitting thing. And yeah, no, listen, actually, no, there's two stories I think that Thor have been something similar. Granted, one was a small aspect of it, and one was pretty much the story in and of itself. And a giant thing with tricking a giant with like the whole stabbing itself and that, I think happened in like a few other stories. Yeah, common aspects. Of, wow. All right, hopefully the next story is not steep brave. All right, this one actually title. The Three Brothers, the Cruel Master, and the Tartaro. Like many others in the world, there lived a mother with her three sons. They were not rich, but lived by their work. The eldest son said one day to his mother, "It would be better for us if I should go out to the service." The mother did not like that, but at last she let him go. Off he goes, far, far, far away, and comes to a house and asks if they want a servant. They say yes, and they make their agreement. Oh no, not again. The master was to give a very high salary, 100,000 francs. Wow. But the servant was to do everything that the master ordered him, and if he did not do it, the master was to tear skin off his back at the end of the year and to dismiss him without pay. Okay, so I'm guessing this is a common agreement, but at least this one makes more sense than the last guy, apparently. But the servant said to him, "All right, I am strong. I now will work." On the morrow, the master gives him a great deal of work, but he does it and easily. The last months of the year, the master pressed him much more, and one day he sent him into the field to sow 14 bushels of wheat in one day. The lad goes sadly, taking him with him a pair of oxen. He returns to the house very late in the evening. The master says to him, "Have you done your work?" He says, "No." "Do you remember the agreement we made? I must tear the skin off your back. That is your salary." Sheesh. Man. He tears the skin off, and as he said, he sends him away home without anything. His mother was in great grief at seeing him come home so thin and weak and without any money. Oh, it was ooh, that was like the end of the year thing. He tells what he has happened, and his second brother decides to start off at once, saying that he is strong and that he will do more work. The mother did not like it, but she was obliged to let him go. He goes into the same house as his brother and makes the same terms with the master. When he had almost finished a year, his master sent him to sow 14 bushels of wheat. He starts very early in the morning with two pairs of oxen, but at night came before he had sown it all. The master was very glad at the sight of that. He strips off his skin, he strips his skin off his back also, and sends him without any money. Think of the vexation of his mother in seeing both her sons return in this fashion. The third wishes to start off at once. He assures his mother that he will bring back both the money and the skins of his back. He goes to he goes to the same gentleman, and he tells this one, two, that he will give him a high salary on condition that he will do all that he shall tell him to do. Otherwise, he shall have the skin torn off his back and be sent away for anything at the end of the year. He had made him work hard and well for 10 months, and then wished to try to and to tell another, and then wished to try him. He sent him to the field, told him to sow 14 bushels of wheat before night, and he answers yes. He takes two pairs of oxen, goes off to the field, and plows a furrow all around the field, and throws 14 bushels of wheat into it. He then makes another furrow to cover it up, and at night he goes home to the house. The master astonished. He asked if him if he has sown it. Yes, it is all underground. You may be sure of it. The master was not pleased. He had his fears. The next day he sends him with 16 heads of cattle to such field, and says to him, "You must take all this cattle into the field without unlocking the gate or making a gap." Our lad takes a hatchet, a hoe, and a fork. Off he goes. And when he gets to the field, he kills them all.
One by one, he cuts them up with the hatchet and throws them with the fork onto the field. Okay, this one sounds more like a reasonable version of the last guy, I'm guessing. The last guy was just a psychopath. This one is just like, was maliciously, is just maliciously agreeing with everything. Huh? So, last guy was just, he was just a psychopath. This one's just getting revenge, whatever. But I have seen way too many similarities once again. Same sources and all that. He comes down at nightfall and says to his master that all the cattle are in the field that he's told him. The master was not pleased, but he said nothing. The next day he told him to go to such a forest and bring a load of wood from there, but all the sticks quite straight. Our lad goes off to cuts down the chestnut corpse of all the young chestnuts trees which his master had planted, and which were the fine ones. Then he comes home, and when the master saw that, he was not pleased. He said to him, "Tomorrow you shall go again with the oxen, and you must bring a load of wood quite crooked, all quite crooked. If you bring only one straight, you so much the worse for you." The lad goes off, pulls up a fine vineyard. After he had loaded his cart, he comes home. When the master saw that, he could not say anything, but he did not know what to think. He sends him into a forest. There was a terror there, and all the persons and all the animals who went there. He ate them all. The master gives him 10 pigs, also food for 10 days, telling him that the hogs would fatten themselves well there, because there were plenty of acorns and that he must return at any day. Okay, this one makes so much more sense than the last guy. Here, pigs just walk around. No, this one actually gives a reason, legit reason that actually makes sense. So our lad begins, and he goes on and on and on. He meets an old woman who says, "Where are you going to, lad?" "To such a forest to fatten these pigs." The woman says to him, "If you are not a fool, you will go there. That horrible Tartaro will eat you." Yeah, no, weren't the I think in the second one, he was also catched. He was doing something with pigs, right? Did it said in the story? A lot of pig herding in this thing. The woman was carrying a basket of walnuts in her head, and she said to her, "If you will give me 2 of these walnuts, I will beat the Totaro." She willingly gives them to him, and he goes on and on and on. He meets another woman who was whining thread. She says to him, "Either whiny thread or something like that. I don't know, but I have wine thread in the balls, and they hurt. Like just keep the thread and just rotating it. Oh, that hurts. It hurts. Takes a while too. Where are you going, young lad?" "To the forest." "Don't go there. There's a horrible Tartaro there, who will be sure to eat you and your pigs as well. I must go there all the same. I will conquer him if you will give me 2 of your balls of thread." And she gives him them, willing, and then goes farther and finds a blacksmith. And he too asks him where is he going. He answers, "To such a forest to fatten my pigs." "You may just as well go back again. There's a terrible Tartaro there, who will sure to eat you. If you will give me spit, I will beat him. I will give it to you willingly." And he gives it to him with goodwill. Our lad goes on and comes to this forest. He cuts off the tails of all the pigs and hides them in a safe place. The Tartaro appears and says to him, "How did you come here? I am going." What's actually the question? "How did you come here? I'm going to eat you." The lad says, "Eat a pig if you like, but do not touch me." He takes his 2 nuts and rubs them against one another. "I have these 2 balls here. If one of them touches you, you are dead." Taro is frightened, then goes away silent. After having eaten a pig, he comes back again and says to him, "We must make a wager. Which of the 2 will make the greatest heap of wood?" Okay, so at least the challenges are different. The Tartaro begins to cut and cut. Our lad leaves him alone, and when he has made a terrible big heap, he begins to go all around the trees with his balls of thread and says to him, "You that, but I all this." And he goes on trying and trying. The Tartaro gives in, saying that he is the more clever than he. And as he has stopped he stopped his 10 days. He made it a night with great fire, and he makes his spit and red hot. And while the Tartaro was sleeping, he plunges his spit into his only eye. After having taken his pigs to tails, he goes away from the forest without any pigs, because the Tartaro has eaten one every day. Near his master's house there is a well of the fairy. Our lad sticks in there the tails of all the hogs except one. as well as he could. He goes running to his master, telling him that all the pigs were coming home very gallantly, and that they had gotten so hot to come in so fast that they all had gone under the mud. I wish to drag one up by pulling, but only this tail came away. Here it is. He goes off to the master, to a marsh. The master did not dare go in there to pull him out. He goes off silently with his servant home, not knowing what to think of it. There he counts him out his 100,000 francs. And he went home proudly to his mother and his brothers, and they lived happily. And the master was left with 100,000 francs less. But yeah, that served him right for having so much. That served him right for having so much. Okay, where's this? This is pretty much like a less jerk version of the last one. So once again, I'm guessing they're both like, I don't know. This one sounds way more like the original, if I'm being honest. But once again, it's probably source material and stuff like that, which obviously same source. This one's an improvement over the last. The last one was just a jerk. Last one was a jerk. This one like, hey yo, I'm doing it. Hey yo, man, I'm doing it for revenge. Last one was like, yeah, I'm just doing it because I'm a jerk. Like, ran it. You can see like the whole reason for both. All right, so the last story, the tale is terrible for today. Like many others in the world, there was a mother and her son. They were very wretched. One day the son said to his mother that he must go away, see if he could do anything. He goes far, far, far away. He traverses many countries and still goes on and on. That's about nice, actually. He arrives in the great city and asks if they know of a place for a servant. They tell him that there is one in the king's house. There they tell him that he is to be a gardener. But he tells them that he does not know how to use a hoe at all, but that, all the same, he will learn it of the others. Such a pretty easy tool, isn't it? You just slam it on the ground and you just pull. And it's another methods like cutting and trimming and priming and stuff like that. I believe that worked in. You know, he was very nice looking. He soon learnt it and was liked by everybody. This king had a daughter, and she often noticed Petite Perroquet. I'm not French, I don't know. Because he was polite to everybody. In this city, there was a prince, and he was paying court to this young princess. And he was seized with dislike and jealousy with Petite Perroquet. One day, this prince went to find the king. He said to him, "You do not know what Petite Perroquet says, that he could bring the Tartaro's horse here." The king sends for Petite Perroquet, lovely, and says to him, "It seems that you have said you could bring the Tartaro's horse here." "I certainly did not." "Yes, yes," said the king. "You said it. If you will give me all that I ask for, I will try." Oh, you know, kids say that. He asks for a great deal of money and sets off. He travels on and on and on, and he had to pass a wide river. He speaks to the ferryman and pays the passage money, and tells him that perhaps he will have a heavy load on his return, but that he will be paid, well paid. He lands on the other side, but he had yet a long way to go in the forest, because the Tartaro lived in a corner of the mountain. At last he arrives, knocks on the door. An old woman comes to see him and says to him, "Be off from here as quickly as possible. My son smells the smell of a Christian a league off. To eat me here or to eat me elsewhere, it is all the same to me." But he goes outside and finds himself under a great heap of cut ferns. He had scarcely been there a moment when he hears a deep breathing and a grinding of teeth, which sound like thunder. He stops where he is, trembling. The Tartaro goes to his house and asks his mother if there is not some Christian or any other hidden here. Like Jack the Beanstalk, fee fi fo fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Yeah, same idea. No, no, he says she, but eat away, your dinner is all ready. No, no, I must eat this Christian first. I understand the fee fi fo fum blood of the Englishman because, you know, like DNA and stuff like that, but this is just random. How would you know? He goes hunting, looking into every corner. He goes to the heap of ferns and pulls off some to put on them on one side. But our petite Perroquet was quite at the bottom. But Cerberus was just on the point of being found. Oh, sorry, of finding him, but he grew tired and went indoors and began to eat and drink enormously. Petite Paraquet creeps out of the ferns, goes off to the stable. The horse had a big bell round his neck, but he fills it with ferns. Though he mounts on the horse's back, and very soon he arrives at the ferry, and the ferryman comes to meet him. Together they get the horse into the ferry boat as well as they could, and they cross over. He gives him a handsome reward. As soon as he was on the other side, the Tartaro appeared, crying out to him to give him his horse back, and that he would give him all he could wish for. He replies, "No, no," and he goes off full gallop. When he came near the king's palace, he took the fern out of the bell, and everybody comes running out the doors or to windows. All the world was astonished to see Petit Paraquet return. King was in ecstasy. He did not know what to say, but he liked him even more than what he formerly did. The princess also did. The prince was not all that pleased, and he began to think of some other plot. He goes off to find the king, and he says to him, "Do you not know the Petit Paraquet says that he could bring the Tartaro's diamond?" The king sends for Petit Paraquet and says to him, says to him, "It seems that you say you could get the Tartaro's diamond." "I certainly did not say such a thing." "Yes, yes, you said it." "No, no, I did not say it, but I will try if you give me all that I shall ask for." And he asks for a great deal of money. He goes off and reaches the ferry and pays the ferryman well, and goes far, far, far away from the forest till he gets to the house of the Tartaro. The old woman tells him off to be off from here, and he goes and hides himself again in the ferns. He stops there until the Tartaro comes to the house. Just as he did the first time, he turns over quickly nearly all the ferns and leaves him scarcely covered. He stops quietly there all the time that the Tartaro was having his huge supper. When he think he had finished and is taking his nap, he creeps up very, very gently. The Tartaro has always put his diamond under his pillow. I see someone doesn't believe in banks. And he takes it away without waking him and escapes, running as fast as he could, as fast as if to break his feet. The ferryman is there, and he crosses him over. He pays him well. The Tartaro appears on the other side again, calls him out to him, telling him to give him back his diamond, and that he will give him all that he could wish for. He answers, "No, no," and returns and runs to the king's house. When they wake up, when they wake up this time, when he arrived there, the king did not know what to do. One one feasted him, and the other fested him, and all the world was busied around him, and everyone loved him more and more, and the princess as well as the rest. The wicked prince did not know what to think of it. He said he was eaten up with jealousy. He thought of something else, and said of the king, "Petit Paraquet says that he can bring the terror himself." Technically, yes. The king sends for Petit Perel and says to him, "It appears that you have said you will bring the terror himself here." "No, no, no. I did not say such a thing at all. But if you will give me all that I ask for, I will try. You must have a carriage made of iron, half a yard thick, and 3 horses to draw it, and a lot of money. When all that is ready, I will go set out." He asks also for a barrel of honey, another feathers, and 2 horns, and starts off. When he came to the ferry, it was no easy thing to get his carriage into the boat. When he said he got to the side, he first puts himself into a barrel of honey, and then into the barrel of feathers, and ties the horns to a head, and it mounts his position. He then comes to the terrace house, and just then he happened to be at home. Petit Perico knocks on the door. Stir himself comes open and asks, "Who are you?" "You." I'm the oldest of all the devils in hell." He opens the carriage door for him and says, "Get in there." The Tarot gets in, and Petit Periquet, very glad, starts off and arrives at the ferry. He crosses, as best he can, with the carriage and horses, and he pays the ferryman generously, and comes to the king's palace. They were all terrified when they saw what he had the Tarot there. They tried to shoot him with a cannon, but he caught the bullets, and he sent them back as if they had been balls to play with. They could have not killed him in any way in that way. They could not have killed him in any way that matters. So they finished him with other arms. As Petit Perico had well gained her, They gave him the princess in marriage. He sent for his mother to court, and as they lived well, so they died happily.
Look, so if I want to get from all this, Tartaro was basically giant. Cyclops. He screwed over a lot. So if only one of these I will fit is the most unreasonable for the heroes, as opposed to like a jerk. Rula, as someone Aruya? Someone actually had a name. But a lot of similarities with the whole pork pig thing, the house of the old lady. Surprisingly enough, not enough people transforming into it. I was expecting more of that. Well, yeah, no, those are a bunch of tales of the Tartaro. Tartaro, Tartalo, what have you. Well, like I said, like, comment, subscribe, and subscribe any other tales you may have, like in tale local tribes, like tales, whatever. Have a good one then.